Hello, my name is Justin Beard, and I'm in the Bachelor's of Science in Nursing program at FSCJ. And for my cultural project, I'm going to be talking to you all today about the Philippines. So first, let's look at a little bit of geography and biology. The Philippines, it's several islands actually. Over 7,100, I think 7,107 islands total that make up the Philippines. And it is located on the Pacific Ring of Fire. It extends approximately 1,100 miles with a total area of 300,000 kilometers squared. There are over 70 provinces, 79 in total. So there's a lot of different cultures within the Philippines itself, and they have hundreds of languages there as well. So looking at the physical characteristics of the Philippines, it's made up of very mountainous terrain, most of them. And then a lot of the islands are actually covered by a tropical rainforest. If you look at the right over there, that mountainous area, I believe, is Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines. And then the left is just to show off some of the tropical regions of some of the islands of the Philippines. The current population is 102,624,209. And Filipinos, generally they don't tend to be very tall. The average male height is 162 centimeters, which is about 5'3", and for women the average height is 150 centimeters, which is right about 5 feet. As far as skin color, for the most part, they all tend to have a nut brown skin tone, depending on also the climate and whether they're out in the sun very often. But generally speaking, they do tend to have a sort of nut brown kind of skin. So as far as communication, yes, there's over 100 languages spoken in the Philippines. The 8 major languages are Ilocano, Pangasinan, Pampango, Tagalog, Bicol, Cebuano, Hiligaynon, and Waray Samaran. The actual national language of the Philippines, which is Tagalog-based, is Filipino. So it's deeply rooted in Tagalog, and that is considered the national language of the Philippines. And they speak English there as well. So next, let's talk a little bit about the family roles and the structure as far as the family in the Philippines. You have the wife, the household, and she pretty much runs the household. She cooks, she cleans, she's in charge and dominates anything house related. She raises the children for the most part. She's the go-to person. She provides for everyone, the children, and she's there to provide emotional support to the husband, because the husband, he's the breadwinner, they would say. He provides the shelter for the house. He puts the food on the table, very traditional. He's just there to give shelter and food for the family. That is until the children do reach their teenage years. Then the father, he'll start to become more involved and work on getting them, building discipline in the children and getting them career bound, trying to establish something for his children, maybe a business, or putting them down the path of education to get a good job and succeed in the workforce. So once they hit the teenage years, that's when you'll start to see the father become a little more involved. But for the most part, until that period, he's just putting food on the table and providing shelter for the family. And then you have the Lolo, which is the grandfather. He's at the top. He's the head of the hierarchy of the family structure. He's very wise, gives very great words of wisdom and advice. Nothing he says is taken as a grain of salt. He's the person that they always go to seek information, or if they have any questions or anything. Because with the years and the age he has upon everyone, we would like to think that he has a lot of wisdom he can impart on others. And then the grandmother, the Lola, she's right underneath the Lolo. She's given great respect, gives great words of wisdom, and she's very influential to the women of the family. So now let's look at the son. The son focuses, it's very interesting in their culture, the son focuses on being a good son and making the family very proud. It's more important to be a good son rather than become a good father. And it's very interesting to hear about that in their culture. You really just want to be a good son to your parents. You want your grandparents to see that. You just want to establish that you're someone that they can have pride in having grow as a child. There is no rush towards autonomy in the Filipino culture when you're the son. They're not trying to get you out of the house and become independent. They actually don't mind you staying in the house for the most part for a good decent amount of time. There is no rush. They're proud of who you are, and then they take a lot of pride in their son, and then they don't wish to get him out there immediately. So there's really no rush. Actually, sometimes if you want to leave the household, and the family members, the parents may not be ready for that. They may be wondering, what's wrong? Why do you want to leave us right now? But a lot of families, Filipino families with their sons, they let them stay in there until they finish school. They don't have to leave right away. They could stay there during college, save up their money, and then have no debt or anything like that. They're very prideful and take a lot of pride in the son in the family. So sons try to really establish a good relationship with their family members. And like I said, it's interesting. They take a lot more pride in being a good son as opposed to a good father. Now the daughter, she kind of follows right behind her mother's footsteps. She's greatly influenced by the mother whom she typically shares a strong bond with. The mother's typically the greatest role model in the daughter's life. And that typically is the nuclear family in the Philippines. So let's look at pregnancy and childbearing practices. In the Philippines, the husband strives to cater to all of the wishes and desires that his wife needs, and all of her requests. Anything that she may need, the husband seeks to accommodate those needs because he really wants her to have a good peace of mind. They really believe that how you interact in your emotions of the wife, that energy will be transferred into how the baby comes out. So if you're really negative, really emotional and upset before childbirth, then that child may, once the baby's born, the baby may actually have those sort of mannerisms and that sort of personality. Also, they may believe that if you fear that and have paranoia that the child may become be very similar to the father and take on his personality and characteristics, then those beliefs will actually come to fruition and the baby will become just like the father. So they're very superstitious with that. And so the husband, he strives to cater to all his wife's needs, and he tries to ease her mind and give her comfort while she's pregnant. And some sort of afterbirth rituals. Some cultures in the Philippines, they may bury the placenta or hide the umbilical cord in roof beams, as they believe it influences the future of the child. For some people, if you were to, I believe, put the placenta in a river or something, then they believe that the child would forever become a wanderer. Or if you were to bury the placenta with, let's say, a newspaper, maybe a pencil or something, that the child would become very intelligent and wise. And same thing as far as like with the umbilical cord, like certain things, locations where you put these objects will affect how the child grows and develops. Very interesting. But that's a lot of that is with the older generation of Filipinos. Looking at health and well-being, let's look at some of the common diseases. Well, the leading causes of mortality in the Philippines are heart disease, cardiovascular disease, pneumonia, cancer, malignant neoplasms, tuberculosis, COPD, diabetes, nephritis, nephritic syndrome, respiratory disease. The diet there typically consists of pork and seafood. They'll have vegetables and rice and noodles. Typically the meals will have like your main meat dish or your type of seafood, and they'll have like a sort of soup. Oftentimes they'll have rice, and then they'll have the rice, so put some of the soup over the rice, or put the rice within the soup. They'll have their vegetables, and they'll typically have tea or coffee with their meals. If you look over here, I believe we see in the left picture some rice. They have some beef kebabs there. It looks like some shrimp, some various vegetables, And over on the right, they have these spring rolls, or these sort of egg rolls that are filled with pork, or depending on whether they want to put pork or chicken or beef in it. That's called lumpia. We have some more looks like beef or pork on a stick, and you have pancit, which is a noodle dish in that white container there as well. And it looks like we have some chili sauce in there. Now let's look at some of the high-risk behaviors in the Philippines. 23.8% of adults in the Philippines use tobacco products, and HIV in the Philippines has increased from 19.85% with 9,263 reported cases in 2016 to 11,103 in 2017. So HIV has been increasing in the Philippines, and close to near a quarter of the population of Filipino adults do use tobacco products. So as far as healthcare beliefs and practices, they have what's called timbang, which is like it's the principle of balance. They really believe in being balanced in the Philippines, both physically, mentally, and also with like hot and cold. I'll go into a little bit detail of that. For example, they believe like too much of certain things like hot foods or cold foods can cause certain illnesses and diseases. So they're all about balance. So for example, with the hot foods, if you were to eat too much meat, which in general you shouldn't eat too much meat anyways, they believe that it will increase your risk for arthritis and hypertension. And looking at cold foods such as fruits and vegetables, they believe that too much of those could increase your risk for different types of cancer as well as anemia. And as far as being balanced both physically and mentally, just having a good sense of emotion and also maintaining your physical health. Doing regular physical activity, whether it be jogging, walking, dancing, taking some ballet classes, playing sports, just being physically active and keeping a good sense of emotion. Looking at some of their healthcare beliefs and practices, like I said earlier, daily physical activity is important for physical health. And also, it's not uncommon for them to incorporate medicinal plants such as guava leaves or teas for their medical treatment. Those are things they may be doing at home. Attitudes toward healthcare, they show great respect towards healthcare practitioners. Actually, in the United States, we have several Filipino nurses. The amount of Filipino nurses in the United States is actually increasing because a lot of nurses in the Philippines are coming over to the States because we have a big nursing shortage. So a lot of Filipinos that I know grow to become nurses and doctors. They're very respectful of healthcare practitioners, and they take their advice very seriously. But with the older generation Filipinos, they may want to incorporate some of their unconventional medicinal practices along with the provider's treatment plan. As far as spirituality and religion, the major religion in the Philippines is Roman Catholic Christianity, 70%, and 17% Protestant Christianity. 5 to 10% people in the Philippines are Muslim. 2% follow Iglesia Ni Cristo, and 2% are Buddhists. Since the majority of it is typically Catholic, they traditionally have Christian burial. The family will usually hold a bedside vigil until the deceased is buried. So say when a family member passes away, one family member will be at the bedside, and then another family member will leave that person to get some rest, and then someone else will come at the bedside eventually. So they basically work in shifts, or they sit over in the loved one in shifts until they are buried. And then after they are buried, for 9 days after the burial, they hold mass and various religious services. And on the very last day, they provide food and drink to say thanks to all the people that came by to commemorate the death of the loved one. And then on November 1st and November 2nd, on All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day, Filipinos commemorate the Christian saints as well as the faithful souls by going to the cemeteries, and they clean gravestones, they tidy the surroundings, and they will typically stay there overnight. They celebrate the death of they celebrate and commemorate the souls of those that were Christian saints that had passed, as well as faithful souls.